Hey, what's up? It's Tati and I'm back with another review, this time Dark Side of the Ring, Season 1, Episode 6, The Fabolous Moolah. On the road to WrestleMania 34, WWE had announced a Women's Battle Royal match. This was in hopes to improve the women's division. Now, that wasn't controversial. What was controversial was the name of the match, and that was the Fabolous Moolah Memorial Battle Royale. And after they have announced that, the fans and critics had no issues letting WWE know that this match should not be named after the Fabolous Moolah. So many allegations had poured onto WWE, and they were forced to name the match the Women's Battle Royale. And that was back in 2018. And since then, we had only had one more Women's Battle Royale at WrestleMania kickoff show, and that was in 2019. So what was the big issue with why people did not want this match to be named after the Fabolous Moolah? So for this review, I'll only be going over what was mentioned during this episode. There's a lot to cover that was not mentioned during this show. And if you would like to take a look here at this episode, I will feature a link so you can take a look at the episode for yourself. So for this episode, we did have Mary, which was the Fabolous Moolah's only child, to be featured on here for interviews, and she had nothing but great things to say about her mom. However, we did have other people being interviewed for this episode who had negative things to say about her, about their horrible experiences with her. By the time Moolah was 9 years old, her mother had passed away from cancer, and she lived with her father and brothers, and that attributed to her toughness. Now, she did get married at 14, where she had her only child, Mary, with a much older man. And during this time, she was a fan of pro wrestling, and her biggest inspiration was Mildred Brooke. And by the time she was 17 and divorced, she decided to follow her dream on to being a professional wrestler. And the person that she wanted to help with her career was obviously Mildred herself and her husband, Billy Wolf, who was a promoter. Now, what they do mention here on the show is that she did state that in order for her to have opportunities with Bill as a promoter, she had to sleep with him. And they don't specify if she did or whatnot, but she did end up training with Mildred and working with Billy. So it's a possibility that she did end up sleeping with him. After years of working as a professional wrestler, Moolah decided that she was going to be training and booking other women. She decided to do this with Buddy Lee, who she married. He was a wrestler and also helped with the booking as well. And that's where these allegations from other female wrestlers began. So for this episode, we do have the family of Sweet Georgia Brown giving their accounts of the Fabolous Moolah and telling some stories that their mother had told about Moolah and her husband, Buddy Lee. During the time Sweet Brown was an active wrestler, she faced a lot of racism. This was during the civil rights movement in the 60s and late 50s. So she did have issues with the KKKs and also racist fans as well. And she felt as though Buddy and Moolah did not protect her, because although they were training her and getting her booked, they did take their 25% booking fee, but wouldn't help her with any issues on the road as far as racism goes. And she also had other challenges as well. So one of the issues that she faced with the Fabolous Moolah and Buddy Lee was that she told her family that she had to have sex with the promoters and wrestlers. So basically stating that they pimped her out. She's not the only person to have ever said that the Fabolous Moolah had pimped them out to other promoters. So after Buddy and Moolah took their big booking fee, she was expected to perform sexual acts with promoters. Now, while that was an issue, she also had to have sex with Buddy Lee as well. And one of her sons talked about a moment where she went to visit the Fabolous Moolah, asking her who his father was. She showed him a picture of Buddy Lee. basically acknowledging that she knew that they had a sexual relationship and that he possibly fathered some of others of Sweet Brown's children as well. Even the Fabulous Moolah's daughter, Mary, remembers Sweet Georgia Brown, who'd often come over to their home and practice wrestling on mattresses. Now, an issue that was going on in the home was with Buddy and him being unfaithful to Moolah. Even though it seems like Moolah knew that he was sleeping around with some of the women that he was training, once after she caught him in bed with one of these girls, she decided that she has had enough and she wanted him out. And when he left the home, he also had some of the women that they were training to go with him and some of the women to stay with Moolah. And one of the women who went with him was Sweet Georgia Brown. Now, it got to the point that Sweet Georgia Brown was so afraid, and because she kept coming home, having another pregnancy after another pregnancy, her brother got so upset one day and burned everything that she had to do with wrestling so that he can keep her from going back. And at that moment, she decided that she was no longer going to wrestle or have anything to do with the wrestling world and retired from there. So now Moolah had her own wrestling school, and two of the women who were featured on The Dark Side of the Ring that were at that school was Wendy Richter and also Princess Victoria. Wendy's first time seeing Moolah was against Vivian St. John, and within 2 weeks she was at the school. Princess Victoria also saw her, and within a few weeks also at school as well. Now, to be at Moolah's school, it was $300 to live and to train at the school as well. So where they were training, they had like little apartments there where the women would live. And that was for $300, and also a 25% booking fee for whenever they had matches. Now, you would think that that's not bad. However, $300 in the 80s is equivalent to around $1,000 in today's money. So that was a lot of money. And also, Moolah expected for these girls to be at the school at certain times. So even when they were not training, if these girls wanted to have a job, that was going to hinder them finding some work where they can make extra money to also afford where they were living and training, since a big chunk of their booking fee was taken by Moolah. So now we have Princess Victoria talking about her experiences with the Fabulous Moolah. Now, she decided to join the school after being recommended to go to Moolah from her booker, who could not find any work for her. And also, while she was recommended, other people told her not to go to Moolah and that they have heard some horror stories. So she goes over to Moolah anyway, and in 1984, she ends up breaking her neck. Another wrestler actually sat on her neck, which resulted into it breaking. She went to the hospital, got a brace, and they helped her and whatnot. And then she goes back to Moolah. Within a few days, Moolah is asking her if she can still take a bump, although her neck is broken. She has to practice even though she has a broken neck. Now, 2 months into her injury, she's not wrestling, so she's not making Moolah any money, and she's also not making money for herself. So now Moolah is telling her that she knows some men who would pay her for her time. You know what that means. So now Princess Victoria doesn't deny that she wasn't going to meet these guys. So she goes to meet a guy. He is first at the airport. She goes pick him up. She sees him. He's butt ugly, but she's going along with it anyway. And she insisted to him that they have 2 separate hotel rooms. Now, in the middle of the night, while she's in bed, this guy comes into her hotel room and tries to make a move on her. And she was not with it at all. And she got upset and decided to leave. Now, Moolah, hearing about this, was absolutely furious because she did not sleep with him. So when she comes home, Fabulous Moolah is, upset and showing her that, you need to make some type of money. If not, we're going to have a problem here since she's living there and she's not being able to wrestle. So a few weeks go by and the Fabulous Moolah tells her that if she can't wrestle, that she would have to give her ring gear up to a Moolah for money. Victoria does not want to do that, and Moolah basically told her to get the fuck out, and she had to leave. Now, Victoria later said that she heard from the other girls that she had to leave the house because she was participating in selling drugs, and Moolah had asked her to leave, which she says is not true. So Wendy Richter also had issues with the Fabulous Moolahs, mainly her jealousy, and she didn't want to work with her any longer, especially after getting signed by Vince McMahon. She wanted nothing to do with her, and that did not last very long. So now the rock and wrestling era has begun, and that has boosted women's wrestling, especially with Cyndi Lauper being involved. And so now we have the brawl to end all, Fabulous Moolah versus Wendy. And Vince McMahon had to pitch to Moolah that she would have to give up her title as champion for the past 28 years, okay, to Wendy. So if anything, Vince McMahon coughed up a lot of money to make sure that Wendy would win this match. Now, after Wendy ends up winning this match, she still had to face a Fabulous Moolah several times after her losing. Now, something like that is not unheard of when it comes to professional wrestling, where you will face the person that you lost your title to after losing. However, she felt like Moolah had put her in a position where she was kind of afraid to wrestle her because she would put her in maneuvers where she really wanted to hurt Wendy physically, and she did not appreciate being in the ring with someone who would not care for her body. So now let's talk about the original screw job. So now it's 1985 and Wendy has a match with the Spider Lady. Now the Spider Lady is a wrestler that she had already faced, and she was told that she was going to win and continue on as champion. So the Spider Lady comes in the ring and she realizes, what she says is she realized that the Spider Lady looks different. But she goes on with the match, and immediately after this match, the Spider Lady puts Wendy in a hold where both of her shoulders are on the mat. Both shoulders are on the mat. The ref got to count 1, 2, 3. After counting 1, Wendy kicks out. However, the ref keeps counting to 3, rings the bell. Spider Lady is the winner and new women's champion. And the Spider Lady unmasks, and it's the Fabulous Moolah. Now, Wendy states that she had no idea that it was Moolah, and me watching back, I could totally see that it was Moolah. Like, you wouldn't even have to tell me. It looks just like her, just with a mask on. Now, Wendy was not aware that she was going to be facing Moolah and also losing the title as well. After the match, she goes looking for Vince McMahon, demanding to talk to him. She said she was so furious that she wanted to kill him. However, she was not able to speak to Vince McMahon immediately after that match. And she says that moment itself has set back women's wrestling. So now fast forward 10 years, 1995, the Fabulous Moolah is inducted into the Hall of Fame. And then a few years later, she and Mae Young has come back to the WWE, and they attributed to some of the craziest moments during the Attitude Era. And in 2007, she does pass away. Now, she was an icon when it comes to professional wrestling, and she set the bar for women's wrestling. However, so many people have horrible memories of her, and she attributed to a lot of exploitation with the women that she trained in the ring. Now, there was something very interesting that was said on this episode where Princess Victoria says, "If I choose not to like her because of what she did to me, that's fine. But Moolah needs to be remembered. She was an icon in this business, and you can't take away her history just because she was an asshole." And that is true. And I do feel like that goes for other wrestlers as well. One, naming Ric Flair. These people have been known for not just being icons, but for, being a bit exploitive outside of the ring. Guys, thank you so much for watching my review. I will put the link down below if you would like to check out this episode. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.